for the CEDAW People's Tribunal. And with me this afternoon is Annette Lawson, who has a very long and very distinguished background working in women's rights. And I'm going to ask her how she came about to this work and what she's doing now. Thank you, Annette.
Hello. Well, I used to be an academic, a sociologist, and I have rarely experienced discrimination in my life, but I did so on the grounds of being female when I was only 7. This was during World War II, and with the headmaster's daughter, she and I were the only girls in the school. It was my brother's prep school. Sports day came along, and I won the 100 yards race. I was egged on by my brother and cousins and other little boys. Come on, Annette, you can do it. And I did. So, of course, I was called up at a certain point to fetch my prize, which I think was a book token or something of that kind. But I heard, and I've never forgotten this, the father of one of the boys say, "What's a girl doing, even running in this race, never mind winning it?" So that was the first time I've experienced gender discrimination. The second was when I was at university. So I had been, when I was young, a senior scientific member of the Medical Research Council. Indeed, I was that by the age of 25. But time off childbearing and rearing led me to being offered a job as a junior lecturer as I approached 40. And then, despite giving me heavy administrative jobs, senior tutor, head of graduate studies, and head of department, I was never given academic promotion at all, not even to senior lecturer.
That's absolutely appalling, but it's a well-known path that's trod by many women, particularly in academia, and it does reflect my own background as well, Annette.
Does it? How interesting.
Very similar.
Yes.
So fascinating to hear that, and I'm sure our listeners and people who are watching this will also know very similar things. So what are you currently doing?
Well, at this university, which I won't name, although I probably should, I really obviously became pretty fed up with it all. And the opportunity came, it arose to go and spend some time in the Bay Area of California. And there, I was a visiting fellow at both Stanford and UC Berkeley, two of the top universities of the world. And wonderful women faculty included me and invited me to join their regular off-campus meetings in one another's houses. And there we would talk through our early ideas or read a paper we were writing, and the criticism was never destructive, always hopeful. And that's where I experienced at first hand, if you like, kind of sisterly behavior, understood what the sisterhood might mean. These were the women who introduced me to feminism and clinched the deal for me to become an activist feminist, which is what I've been doing for the past 40 years. I would say most of the time completely unpaid. Yeah. So right now, to back up a little bit, so in that role as a feminist, I have had various senior appointments. I mean, I've chaired a number of women's organizations, including the National Alliance of Women's Organizations. And now the organization that I co-founded and ran from 2011, co-convened, called the UK Civil Society Women's Alliance, has set up expert groups. And despite my retirement 5 years ago, I have been asked to co-convene with Margaret Owen, another even older feminist than me, the group on international affairs. So that's what I'm doing right now.
It's amazing that time period that you're talking about coincides with the time that the UN set up CEDAW.
Yes.
And I know that you're very experienced through your work with the workings of CEDAW and the benefits that this would have for women and girls in this country. And
Yes.
I also know that you're currently been very busy in the last few weeks, in particular, looking at a specific issue that's happening at the moment with the merger of government departments, which seems to imply that they haven't quite got the grasp on equality that we'd like them to have. Would you just like to give us a little flavour of that?
Yes. Well, that's absolutely right. The two departments, the great departments of state we're talking about, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Department for International Development, they have been merged as actually of yesterday, September the 2nd. And in the actual merger, the first 6 interim senior appointments have been made. And I'm very sorry to have to tell you that these are not equal appointments, neither as between parties to the merger, so it's biased towards people with a Foreign Office background, nor as to whether they are men and women. So we have 4 from the Foreign Office, 2 from DFID, 4 men and 2 women, and no Minister for Development. So the overall Secretary of State is the Secretary of State for the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, but he does not have any experience of development. And this has very, very serious consequences for women and girls the world over, because the culture of those 2 organizations are completely different. So in our group, the Group on International Affairs, we have prepared a paper which is arguing that without both structural and cultural change between supposedly equal parties in a merger, there will be essentially a takeover rather than a real merging of ideas and of values and of work. And this is a great pity, because in July, the Undersecretary of State for the Foreign Office gave a written answer to a question from Caroline Lucas, the Undersecretary of State's name at that time, I don't know if she still is, I'm afraid I haven't looked it up, is Wendy Morton. And she declared, and this was on the authority of the government and the Prime Minister, that an overall goal for the merged department would be gender equality and the empowerment of women. If I feel, and our group feels, that if the articles from CEDAW that talk about stereotypes and the way gender roles are so divided, and also if they had used the general recommendation number 25, which tells you how and what this means, and that you can use something called temporary special measures to get over the difficulty in seeing things equally and making things equal, and in providing something not to be seen as discrimination, but that favors changing your behavior to make things equal, then we wouldn't have had, in my opinion, that particular distribution of new appointments. They're interim. Maybe we can change them within 6 months.
I think you've said in a nutshell really why we need CEDAW, because of all of the things about the culture in the past, the stereotypical views of women, and all the other things that come with a government that says that it's trying to give us equality, but just needs CEDAW in place to make sure that that happens. And also your use of temporary special measures, of course, we have used these before. And Tony Blair's government, of course, did use it in order to get all women shortlists, in order to give us the female MPs that we so desperately need. Because until we can get women involved in government and involved in lawmaking, we're going to always be led by the decisions made by men, with the best will in the world.
That's absolutely right. And it was that step that only the Labour Party took up to use all women shortlists is what led to the first major increase in women members of Parliament. It wouldn't have happened without it. And now it's gone back to creeping up, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's now, I think, about 32%. And it was, you know, terrible low, 9%, those kinds of things. How can we possibly be governed, you know, in a way that is representative when we're still way below the 50% or 51% that women are in the population? So those ideas about temporary special measures, and the thing is, they are temporary. You don't keep them for very long. You make a rule like women only shortlists at the next election. You don't have to keep that in place if you meet the targets. If you don't, you carry on till you do.
Yes, I think everything that you've said and all of your experience is coming round to the view that we need to have CEDAW transposed into domestic law as soon as possible, because
Yes.
it will be transformational for the women and girls in this country. And that although we have equality laws, we need better equality than what we've got.
I think it would I think it would be transformative not only actually domestically, because if you change the mindset, if you change the laws, if you change the behavior, so that, say, you would have equal numbers of senior people in the Foreign Office, as it was, and everywhere in the cabinet, which we don't have, then your thinking about any problem that you're facing would be transformed.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much, Annette, for having the time with us today, and for everything you have done for over the past 40 years for women and girls, not just in this country, but across the world. We've so much to be grateful to you for. Would you like to just say something to all the women's groups out there, or women in particular, just to let them say that we have a tribunal, we're trying to get this through as soon as possible. We would like all women on board with us. We want to do it for women and girls. Is there anything you can say to them that would get them on board or get them to help us in any way?
Well, I think the whole idea of a people's tribunal to call witnesses, ask for statements, and people can write in as well as appearing on a Zoom and give oral evidence to tell. We need all women, and this goes for women of all ages and girls. It goes for women of all colours, of all social classes, abled and disabled, all of the categories, the discrimination categories, everybody of faith and no faith, and so on, to give that evidence of why it's so important for us women to continue to struggle for equality. And here's one practical thing. The integration of the CEDAW articles together with these important general recommendations into our law would have, I think, an incredibly important effect if we were able to do it. And the People's, is it not called Assembly? What's it called? It's
the People's Tribunal.
The People's Tribunal will be producing a report at the end that should be completely convincing and get us where we want to be.
That's what we expect it to be. Thank you so much, Annette, for your time today. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.